Tom Miller readily admits that he will take certain experiences away from Carlisle United that will not be easy to gain elsewhere. In some cases, next to impossible. Asked about the highlights of his 3 years here, he says, "My Football League debut, at Mansfield, is always going to be a big one, and then there was Anfield. I've got Philippe Coutinho's shirt, which was amazing. That 2015 night against Liverpool, in the League Cup, will be the jewel in many memories of the last few United years." As Miller moves on, he thinks of more. "I know we didn't win them, but just being part of the playoffs in my second year, not too many players get that opportunity," he says. Everton at home, in front of a big FA Cup crowd, was another one, and there are lots of memories of just being around the club, with the lads, and team nights. We had such a good group of genuine guys, which are hard to find in football. Miller must now make different memories, having been released by the Blues. That followed a regrettable second half of 2017-18 for the defender, who missed much of it with injury. Making 108 appearances and 9 goals overall, the 27-year-old was generally a part of better times at Brunton Park, built by Keith Quarrell. There is no bitterness as he goes, but there is, from the right back, a sense that Carlisle's recent attempts at progress were not always as smooth as they could have been. On his memories, he adds, "Derby away, in 2016's League Cup, I enjoyed that as well. I thought we played some amazing football. We had it in us to do that, but it's so hard to do it in this league, because oppositions are so different. There are lots of horrible teams and styles, and our own tactics also changed so much." Last season, Miller suggests more consistency with the latter would have benefited both himself and the team. "I'm not a manager, but I think that could definitely help. Especially players at our level, it's not like you can just switch it on. We're not premiership footballers. I know people might disagree, but I think the first part of this last season was some of the best football I've played. I play a kind of football where it might not look too pretty, with how I move. I'm not like your Nicky Adams is gliding, but I did what was asked of me, chipped in with goals, and got 5 assists. I felt I was really getting momentum, but it was a time when we weren't set in terms of the style of play. Each week we were changing it completely, and it was, also, before we had Clint Hill, who really steadied the ship. I felt it was the fittest I'd ever been, and I was just doing what I was asked. But each game it was something very different to the last game, so that makes it very difficult in itself." Miller eventually lost his place to Lonnie James Brown, Gary Little later taking the right-back slot. Miller says both did well, and bears them no ill feeling, but it added up to a challenging time, particularly when injury then curtailed his attempts to regain his place. Between January 1st and April 21st, he did not figure in the first team. That was a frustrating period, he says. Just before that ankle injury, I had a slight strain in my hamstring, because I was desperate to get back in the team, so I'd hammered my body. That Friday, assistant manager, Colin West, came up and asked what was wrong, because I was limping a bit. He said, "God, you've been training really well," and I was in the starting lineup for the next day, but I had to pull out. I had a week and a half out, then a bounce game. Then I went into a silly tackle. I thought it was only gonna be a few weeks out, but because I'd never had ankle problems, I didn't really understand that, even though there's not too much pain there, it's still not gonna support me in my movements. It was frustrating, but it's done now. These things can come in clusters, good or bad. Hopefully the good times will come back to me." Miller says being released last Monday was not a bolt from the blue. I kind of knew, he says. It wasn't like there was a new manager ready to come in who might have liked me. I went in there knowing it was gonna be, thanks a lot for your time and we wish you all the best. I'm not daft, I've been in the game long enough. It's the end of a journey that I've really enjoyed. I'm leaving a lot of friends, but that's football. You're never really safe in any club in this game. I'll still keep in touch with everyone and I'll still keep an eye on how everything goes. If I can get something sorted soon, I'll be back at Carlisle next year, hopefully. I know I'd be playing against them, but it's one big family, really. Has he had any interest yet? I've had some offers, he says. Some are maybe not ideal location-wise. He lives in Manchester, while his family are in Cambridgeshire. I've also spoken to a couple of managers, but not about numbers yet. I've got to think about everything, with my partner and stuff. Football is my job, so if something in the wrong area, geographically, comes up and it's a deal that for footballing and financial reasons I can't turn down, that it's somewhere I feel I can really develop, I'd take it tomorrow. It's early days, but I'm happy with the amount of calls I've had, considering I had a season last year where, for a large part of it, I didn't really feature. Miller is not alone in this summer of uncertainty. It's a tough world, this, he says. There are a lot of players out of contract, all looking for the same thing. Can maybe get some younger or older players who maybe don't have the same concerns in terms of paying mortgages off and so on. It can almost price you out of a move. And nowadays, you can't leave things too long, or you can end up having to take whatever is put in front of you, later on. Overall, he adds, it's been great for me at Carlisle. I made the step up from non-league, which I think is a big step, and I think I've developed, but I do think it was the right time for me to leave, and maybe work with someone else, maybe someone that wants different things. This is going to be a big year for me. I need to really get my head down, work on my strengths, and play the game that I play, rather than something that's not my game. If I want to try and kick on at a higher level, this is my year, really. Another lasting memory for Miller will be the December 2015 floods when, in his first season in Cumbria after moving from Lincoln, the defender joined teammates in helping the stricken Carlisle community. Miller himself offered his services on Twitter to anyone who needed a hand. The floods were horrible for the people of Carlisle, but seeing how the city pulled together was a nice thing in a bad situation, he says. It was good to be a part of that, when everyone was chipping in and helping each other out. You don't get much of that these days. I remember when we were all walking around Warwick Road, helping clear out houses, people walking around with pizzas, giving people food. Everybody was so appreciative of everybody else. Because of his injuries, Miller did not get enough opportunity to feel the full benefits of a decision to turn vegan last summer, something partly inspired by former Blues teammate and double cancer survivor Joe Thompson. It took time, the defender says, to adapt his diet, but says, now that I've got it nutritionally correct, for my body and my recovery, I do feel greater than I've ever felt. It's now about getting out on the pitch and showing everyone that's the case. I've also got a few things in that community, business ventures, that I'm working on, which will be exciting. The inspirational Thompson, who scored the goal against Charlton that kept Rockdale in League One, is involved in some of those ventures. What an amazing day that was for him and his family, Miller says. I speak to JT quite a bit and I'm very happy for him and his family. They've been through a lot but he's never stopped smiling. Miller adds that it would be fitting if Thompson won the Global Laureus Sporting Moment of the Year award for which he has been nominated. As for Miller, at 27, he has his own things to achieve, even as he leaves a club where, he says, he always felt at home, thanks to the friendliness of teammates, staff and supporters. Currently managerless, and with a squad in flux, there is much to be addressed at his now former employer. As he looks back, while moving on, Miller finally says, "I hope everything gets sorted at Carlisle. Whatever happens, I'd always like to see the club do well."